There is a trend going on right now in home building in this country that has the potential to remake society, and no one is talking about it. In some ways, this is a trend that could make things better, but in a lot of ways, it will make things much worse. In this video, I'll explain what that trend is, why it's happening, and what impact it will have on society. It is no secret that there is currently a shortage of housing in this country, and I'm sure that each of you watching know someone who wants to buy a home but can't afford it due to either high home prices or high mortgage rates, or both. Mortgage rates have been hovering around 7% for months now, which is the highest rate in nearly 20 years. Home prices are also hovering at historic highs, and added to that, wages have not kept up with these prices, and we can see that in the data. Since the 1980s, household incomes have increased by 31%, but median home prices have increased by 438%. So what solutions do people have? Well, not a lot, really. Living with family may be an option for some, buying smaller homes may be an option for others, and for others, the only option is to rent. And we can see that in the data as well. Here is a graph of the median square footage of homes built in the US. You can see that it peaked in 2014, but has dropped by 18% since then. Another important statistic, and perhaps the most meaningful, is the amount of multifamily homes that are being built. And here's a graph showing that trend over the past 30 years. Now, these are the number of buildings being built which have more than 5 units, and you can clearly see that that trend is up. But here's what's different now than in times past. Now, in the past, it hasn't been unusual to see a large apartment building being built in a large city. But today, big apartment buildings are going up all over the country, even in suburban and oftentimes rural areas. And I'm sure that each of you have seen that. In fact, leave me a comment and let me know what you're seeing in your area. And be sure to let me know where you are so that we can understand what this trend looks like throughout the country. So that is the trend that I'm talking about, this building of new apartment buildings all over. Now, it can be a good thing because we do have a huge shortage of housing in this country and people need a place to live, but there are a lot of negatives. Traffic is one thing. These apartment buildings tend to have a lot of people in them, and that creates a lot of traffic that in a lot of cases, some areas may not be equipped to handle. Another point is that people who live in apartments tend to be more transient. So that means that it's hard to put down roots and it's hard to gain a sense of community. People in apartments also tend to have fewer kids, and that's really a problem for the entire country. And people in apartments generally are not able to build any kind of equity of their own if they don't own a home. And that can really have long-term financial consequences for people. Now, it gets worse because not only is the number of apartment buildings being built going up, but the number of single-family homes being built is coming down. And that's what this graph shows. The amount of single-family homes being built peaked in 2006 and has never fully recovered. And that is really on the backdrop of a population increase in the US of more than 25%. Over that same period. So single-family homes are getting smaller and fewer of them are being built, even though the population has increased. New apartment buildings are being built all over the country in places that have never seen it on this scale before. Younger people who were not lucky enough to buy before home prices and rates went crazy are now being forced to rent. And that brings me to my last point, and perhaps the most concerning trend taking place not just in the US, but also in Canada and other countries, and that is the trend of private companies buying up single-family homes just to rent them out. In some cases, they're building single-family homes just to rent them out. Now, the data on this is a bit tough to dig through, but here are some figures that you may find interesting. In Texas, where I live, an estimated 30 to 45% of all homes purchased in 2023 were bought by investors. The numbers for the rest of the country are fairly similar, and some estimates say that by 2030, 60% of all homes in the US may be owned by investors, and a significant amount of those investors are private equity firms. Now, these are large firms, big companies like Blackstone, the Carlyle Group, and Cerberus Capital. They are backed by billions of dollars and are only interested in a healthy profit. And when we talk about housing, that profit is going to have to come off the backs of people who can't afford to buy a house of their own, and through equity increases that people who rent will never get to participate in. These firms generally don't care about interest rates because they usually pay in cash, and they have been outbidding buyers for the past few years, which is one of the reasons why home prices have gone up as much as they have. So here is why all of this is really concerning. The way to the American dream for a lot of people in the past has been home ownership. In the past, a lot of people were able to buy homes for close to what rent would be. They'd pay on the loan for 30 years, and then after it's paid, have only taxes and upkeep to pay for. Also, over that time, the value of their home could increase substantially, giving them more wealth overall that they could tap into or pass on to their kids. I personally worry about my kids. Now, they're still young and they're not looking to buy a house anytime soon, but I question what the environment will look like for them in 10 or 15 years when they actually are ready to buy a house, when they want to buy a house. Will they be able to afford it? Or are they going to be doomed to just rent for their whole lives? Now, I really don't know what the answer is. I think that in a lot of cases, it's just going to require a shift in the economy. If more homes are built and interest rates go down or home prices fall for some reason, then maybe the little guy will be able to get into a home. It's happened before. But maybe other things need to happen. Maybe tax rates need to be adjusted to penalize private equity purchases. And then perhaps you use those taxes to pay for tax incentives for first-time home buyers. Again, I don't know the answer. But I would love to hear what all of you think about this. What are your thoughts? What should be done, if anything? Leave me a comment and let me know. Now, here's the last thing that I'll say on this. The housing market runs on cycles. There are ups and downs in building, there are ups and downs in interest rates, and things are constantly changing. My parents paid something like a 13% interest rate on the home that I grew up in. Before I bought my first house, I thought that maybe I would never be able to afford one, but I did. So maybe that's the silver lining. Things are rough now, but the only constant is change. I just hope that things change for the better and not for the worse. So in the meantime, hang in there, especially if you're one of those people looking to buy a home. Hopefully things change. Maybe your situation changes, the economy changes, and makes that possible. Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you in the next one.